Anyway, let me start. I want to restart off my time. Don't count this time here. Oh, he's not listening anymore. Anyway, I'm going to talk about something called convention over configuration. I'm sure most of you have heard about it. Nowadays, it's a very popular term. Anybody who is, known, or are into web application development or doing Ruby on Rails, they know this term. Oh, I forgot. I have only 5 minutes, so I should move on. Okay, so what is it? So basically, it is something that we use all the time in everyday life and also in software development. So down there you see the definition from Wikipedia. It said that convention over configuration is a software design paradigm which seeks to blah blah blah. We'll come to this later. But let's find out in lame word, because I'm not really a very definition kind of guy who wants to go through all the definitions. So let me just give you a very simple introduction, which I think most of you know, but I don't know why I'm talking about this. But anyway, I'm talking about it. Okay, so as I said, that we use it all the time. Just for an example, each of us have conventions like we have a particular place where we keep the DVDs. We have a particular place where we keep our other stuff. And we have, for example, we have some morning course. When we wake up in the morning, we have a certain way of doing things or conventions of doing things. Other examples, maybe like the way we keep files in our hard disks. Okay, most of us normally, we are trying to organize it. We try to keep the music files somewhere else. We try to keep the video files somewhere else. We try to keep some files hidden. We have got some different mechanisms of doing that. So what I want to say here is that we use conventions every day in our day-to-day life. Now, we also use it in software development. This is not something new. Everybody uses it, everybody does it all the time. For example, each of us have got different ways of naming files, different ways of naming functions, classes. I'm sure many of you do it. You have your own way, own habits of naming the classes or keeping the files in a particular position. Can I know how many minutes I have? Okay. Just like that, there are a lot of other examples of conventions that we use in software development. It doesn't have to be web development. It can be any software development that we do. And as I said, each of us do follow some conventions. Now the question is that if everyone already knows and uses conventions, what's my point here? What I'm doing here? I have nothing to do. I want to talk about something which everybody knows about. Maybe that's what it is, but anyway, I have got a point, or at least I think that I've got a point. So the point is that we can use these conventions to reduce the amount of configuration files that we use in our systems or frameworks. This is what we call convention over configuration. So I guess that's my part, or my way of defining the whole thing. I don't know how much you guys got it, but I think everybody understood it, right? What I'm talking about? Can I hear a big yes? No. Yes, come on, where's the excitement? I want the excitement. It's a rock concert, right? Where's the music? Anyway, I'm making a fool of myself. Sorry, Sadhapri. Oh. Okay, so now talking about configurations, we know that many software development platforms and frameworks have tons of configuration files. I'm sure many of us are already familiar with it. With configuration files, from when the project gets bigger, what does that mean? Oh, so what I was talking about is that the configuration files get bigger and bigger as the project goes bigger. So we need to do something about it, and we can use convention to, reduce it. For example, here is a simple configuration file that I have. In the above part, it tells that the model class user should be using the database table users. They have a configuration file for it. But instead of that, we can just have a convention where we say that all model classes will be singular and we'll have a plural table names. So if our framework supports that concept, we don't have to actually have a configuration file. Oh, I missed a... Oh no, I did. So what are the good things about following conventions over configuration? Definitely faster development. Promotes uniformity. So that means all the developers in this team are actually following the same rules. Easier to maintain software, no huge configuration files, structured code base. What are the bad things? Requires familiarity, hard to refactor existing frameworks to adopt a new convention, and definitely larger framework. There are already some frameworks that uses it. For example, Ruby on Rails, Grails, Cake PHP, and many more. So guys, do you want me to continue? Or should I stop? I like the music. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you for, being with me.
All right, thank you for a great presentation. Very original. All right, so what do you mean actually? I mean, are you saying that we should be using Ruby on Rails, Hibernate, Spring, all these kind of things when we're doing coding? Any frameworks that whenever we are starting coding, we have to think of like we need frameworks to do it?
No, that's not actually my point. What I was trying to, tell is that whichever framework we use, it might be our own framework or any other framework that we are maybe using. It should, or if it follows convention over configuration, our development will be faster. That's my point. If you're listening to me, he's not listening.
So when someone is actually, assume he's doing coding in .NET, all right, and it's a desktop application, all right. So how does this configuration actually fit in? I mean, can you give some examples of what is he going to do? I mean, usually in .NET itself is a framework in that sense, and
Actually, that's why I needed more time. I couldn't describe it, but on serious notes, I'm not actually a .NET programmer. I really don't know, what kind of mechanism that they use, but definitely it depends on the framework. We cannot actually use convention over configuration mechanism with all the frameworks out there. If the framework doesn't support it, we can't actually use it. So I'm sure there are a lot of .NET developers over here. They can answer this question better, whether the framework actually has mechanisms to get in conventions of the developers. I'm mostly a PHP developer. I use Cake PHP, CodeIgniter. I'm very much familiar with Cake PHP. I really love the framework. And in there, it's totally dependent on conventions, where they have a strict way of doing things, and if we follow them, it's easier and faster to develop. That's my idea, at least.
I won't actually ask any more questions. And is our volunteers ready with the microphones?
Yeah.
Because we will be taking questions from you. All right, Hassan. Okay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Ask your first question.
I knew you would be the first one.
Okay, so what I was trying to ask, probably forgot, but let's try to. Okay, actually you're talking about the convention over configuration, right? So I was just thinking, like, in some case when we are developing some application or stuff, we try to keep the abstraction between the configuration layer and the application. I mean, we're not hard coding the configuration. So if we keep XML or JSON or this kind of things in a separate file, I mean configuration in a separate file, we can easily control those things. Like let's think about the Hibernate, that configuration, the mapping thing. Hibernate has also support through the annotation, but they have this XML whole thing. The advantage I feel is, if I want to change, like I have a table with a lot of fields, and I don't want to expose some setter or getter, then I can write the mapping there. Okay, so it has the whole control on me. So how you define that convention over configuration can help in this kind of situation?
Okay, let me try to answer it, but I think what you have been asking is that how actually conventions will make things easier. Since we already have got configuration files over there, we have all the controls, but why do we go through the pain of making our frameworks convention friendly so that we don't need any configuration? So is it worth the pain? That's your question, right? Okay, different programmers, different people will have different ideas about it, but let me tell my opinion, what I think about it. I believe that having configuration files is also a good thing. You have more control, but what I believe is that in the long run, when the project goes on, it's modified or it's been used in another project, or maybe we are using the same code base again and again, where all the time we need to make sure that our configuration files are okay before we start a project. Now, in that kind of situation, convention over configuration can really help, since we don't have to always configure the basic stuffs. So in that situations, convention over configuration can be like a blessing. So the developers can totally focus on what they have to develop, instead of wasting an hour or 2 days or 3 days or even 15 days to configure a framework to run for a project. So I think that is where convention over configuration actually helps in. I don't know if I've answered your question. Right, right. I would just like to add here, I'm not saying that this is the best configuration in the world and everybody should use it. No, I'm not saying that. It depends on the situation. It depends on how you think about your problem. Because ultimately, the programmers, how our brain works, it depends on the solution that we are trying to give. So I guess I'm talking too much. So it all particularly depends on who you are and what kind of problem you're trying to solve. And there may be some situations where convention over configuration may be of great help.
Okay, one more question. Okay, we just have to move on. If you have more questions, you can go to our mailing list at sqbd.com and post your questions, and Ahsanul Bari will hopefully answer it, with a lot of criticism from everyone else. A big hand from us for Ahsan.